Advancing is being in touch, being very specific, being overly specific on the vehicle you're driving, how many people you have, what you want backstage, how you want the backstage, what you can give them requests that maybe they can't accommodate. Say I need 3 dressing rooms, one for the main artist, one for the band, one for the crew, but they only have 2 dressing rooms. But at least they'll have an understanding of what you need, and then they'll tell you in the advance we only have 2 dressing rooms, but at least that's been communicated, because you form a relationship with these people too via email. And it's nice to meet when you finally get there and you finally get to Pittsburgh and you're like, hey, Judy, and I shake their hand and I'm like, thank you so much for all the communication. I'm really adamant about that because I want people to advance well.
I always say most of the work as a tour manager is actually before the tour, and you need to be as organized as possible and as prepared as possible, so that on a good day you shouldn't really have much to do, because things should just run themselves because you've done all that advance work. And so that when things go wrong, because they do, then you're able to focus on the crisis at hand, and you know that everything else is just going to happen. So that's, the be prepared in advance, I guess, is my biggest tip.
I think it's just not letting things get to you, and I think also having the mindset of as much planning that you can put as much plans in place as you want, and create all these itineraries and speak with everyone and double check everything over. Like, everything's never going to go exactly how you planned it, and I think just being fine with that and knowing that there's always a solution to the problems that arise, and there's always going to be problems that arise, but just I think just remaining calm and knowing that that's just the nature of the business, and dealing with them as they come.
Your routine at home, take it on the road, and that's especially important with things like exercise. Exercise as much as you can, because for me that helps me keep my mental health in some kind of check, so that I look more like the swan at the top rather than the swan at the bottom.
Well, I'm not a very confrontational person, so I like to try and de-escalate as much as I can. But I think if someone's screaming in your face or shouting at you, hopefully that's not happening, but it does happen sometimes. I think the worst thing you can do is shout back at them, because it's just making everything worse, in my opinion. So I think trying to de-escalate, trying just to bring things back down to a level, taking breaks, treating yourself. I think we're kind of an industry that sometimes glamorizes the hustle and constantly being busy, constantly working, having no sleep, running on empty, and it's just not doable, I don't think. So I think just being kind to yourself and remembering to hydrate, sleep, and being kind to yourself.
You can do your best to try and put yourself in someone else's shoes, but you may not always. So it's best to just lead with empathy and compassion. And keeping a level head means keeping a safe space. And not just for yourself, but for whomever you're interacting with. And I find you get more with honey than you do with whatever shit, or I don't know what else you get.
Anything abrasive.
No one wants to be rubbed by a Brillo pad, right? We want a smooth body scrub. So
if you've got the right temperament, I think it's helpful. Advancing is really helpful. Also, kind of experience, working with people with mental health issues. Like, I have been in some quite really extreme situations, and sort of having an understanding about how to keep calm and kind of project calmness is really helpful. Transferable skills. I used to joke with bands about I used to work with people with disabilities, and it's transferable skills. Kind of making a bit of a joke, but it actually really is. And the more I get young tour managers asking me, how do you get into it? What experience do you need? I realise, actually, dealing with people is really helpful. Presenting budgets and getting agreement from the council is the same as presenting budgets and getting agreement from management. And it's all transferable stuff.
Advance. And I'm probably not the first person to say this, but advancing is key to stress. And I mean, as you should, I advance for if it's a month-long tour, I'll advance for probably a month, or weeks ahead of time, so that, and I'll have my tour book all sorted out, so I know what's going on, what's going to happen, because obviously shit happens on tour, and and so I'd rather be kind of putting out fires than trying to deal with the actual work that should have been done ahead of time. So that's my top tip: advance.
So I have learnt and seen certainly that the minute you lose it, it goes to pot. Like it just gets worse. So keeping calm is key, because the minute you get stressed is when you make everything hard work for yourself. So I think if you can have a positive attitude, and everyone has a positive attitude back with you, and you just get so much more respect from your crew, from the suppliers, from everyone that you deal with. So I try not to get worked up as much as I possibly can.
That's good.
Yeah, and work with a smile on your face. Like it's a really hard industry, and it's really long days. And I think just everyone being positive is such an asset. And I'm very lucky with the teams that I work with on all of the tours that I'm on. Is that we have such a lovely crew, and I think that's why that we keep crew as well. Like if you're on a happy tour, then they always kind of keep the same personnel.
That's a tough one, because it's difficult to do that. I think for me, it's just like sometimes just being able to, like, if you feel like you're losing it a little bit, which happens probably daily, just go somewhere quiet, have 3 deep breaths, have a sip of water, and be like, you're here for a reason, and that reason is because you're good at what you do. And just remember about this, and just go and do and deal with whatever you have to do, because if you weren't able to be dealing with this, you wouldn't be here, and that's it. Just remind yourself about this, because everyone tends to doubt sometimes in difficult situations.
Do you know what? It's really tough, because I've found myself in situations where I haven't had a level head, because, you know, the pressure and stress that you're under, especially, you know, when you're put into situations where you've gone from, you know, maybe you had an artist that was small and they've blown up, and then you've gone from dealing with a couple of thousands in your budget to a couple of millions. And, you know, that's a lot of pressure for someone with no training of that to be under. I would say how to keep a level head would be always just to think before you speak, and always remember that no matter who you are or what you're going through in that moment, the person that you're dealing with is also coming from a situation, and they're also going through something. And it's really just like, in the moment, just stop. Because I think a lot of people are keen to say their part and get their point across, whereas actually the power that I've learned is just to take a step back, take a second, think about how the situation is going to play out, maybe, if you can, and then act. And also just be open to hearing what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, and realize that sometimes you might not be right.
Yeah. And
being able to correct that, I think. So that's how I would stay level.
Don't take drugs and don't drink. Unfortunately, I'm of that school of the 80s and the 90s. In actual fact, there was nobody sober on tour ever. Yet we still managed to do the same shows. I wouldn't say to the same caliber.
Yep.
And if I had my peer group here from those days, no. But things have changed. The business has changed. Therefore, the only way to get through this is realistically don't drink, don't take drugs. You know, I'm a terrible eater, I'm a terrible sleeper, but it's like, try and get as much rest as you can. Facilities have changed over the years.
Yeah.
Sleeper buses have got better. They used to be terrible. You know, you'd never sleep. You know, that's probably because you're still drinking. But that's the main thing is eat healthily, and realistically now in this day and age, it really is about, you know, I try and have a sort of a mentoring system with the new assistants that are coming in, younger kids.
Yep.
My door really is always open, and it is that thing, you know. It's like, yes, I need people to work, you know, hard, and the hours are long. But you know what? Generally, up the higher end of things, even some of the lower things, the money's good. So, you know, work hard at it. But I'm not driving people into the ground because it's like, because management tell me we've got to do this. It's like, you know, something's going to break, and when something breaks, it's not easy to fix it. Or if it does, if you have to fix it, it costs money, and then you're going in this vicious spiral circle thing, which is like, it's pointless. Treat people nicely. Now, I know people who do know me probably I haven't treated people very nicely over the years. I may be renowned for that, but I have an awareness of other people's, you know, I do have an empathy with other people, and again, people that know me probably think I'm lying, but it's like, it's in there somewhere. Yeah, and I think it's just trying to make it as comfortable as possible for people to tour, of whatever ages, whether you've been doing it for 20, 30 years, or whether you've been doing it for 2 or 3. You know, it's like, you know, just try and be nice to people, you know. And it's difficult because there's a trickle-down effect. I predominantly work with American bands. I don't really work with the European bands, and it's just historically that's how I've done it. Different style of management, and they're generally older acts that have a different way of thing, and there's a different kind of ethic on the tour where it's like there's a lot of shouting and there's a lot of finger pointing and a lot of blame, and it's like, hey guys, that's not what it's about. It's like, but that trickle down effect, as they say, shit rolls downhill, I'm afraid. It's going to go past me and it's going to go on to the kids below me. So it's like I try not to let that happen, but it does. If I'm really honest, if I'm honest, and I try and soak up as much as possible, but it doesn't always happen. So
taking care of yourself pre-tour, mid-tour, you know, there's limitations as to the amount of care you can give yourself during a tour, of course. But I had a bit of a tough year last year. Actually, I sort of learned the hard way. I've sort of ran myself into the ground a little bit, so that was an eye opener. I started the year in Australia in January, so it was like all sort of systems go. And then the artist brought out an album in April with all the UK shows, Europe, and then straight into summer we designed a new show, and yeah, it was a lot. And then other projects laid on top of that on paper should have been fine, but stuff was going wrong like they do. So yeah, sort of taking, because I ran myself really into, I finished pretty much last year in the US in October last year, and it was like back to back. So yeah, sort of getting sleep and having like a normal routine as much as you can at home. I at the time I was sort of living in a bit of a studio, small flat in central London, which was a mistake. It wasn't a home, you know. I didn't feel. Now I live in a bit of a bigger flat, and it's, you know, I've got a bedroom, and I actually took a bit of time last year to make it a bit more of a home. You know, like buy a nice bedding, nice mattress, and just little things like that, you know, that sort of add to the bigger picture of. When I go home, I go home. Before that, I was never going. It was just like a bed sit, you know. That's what it felt like. So yeah, in terms of keeping a level head, just little things like that, you know, now, because I'm sober now, so I don't drink or do drugs, but that's not the, you know, problem solved. You know, I still have other issues that, you know, I can be quite self-destructive at times. So just going into a sort of tour or run a date or whatever it is, you know, giving yourself the best opportunity to have a level head.
I don't know, looking after yourself, like getting good sleep and taking care of yourself, like, you know, not drinking and just doing the best for yourself to give yourself the best chance at being able to keep a level head. Grab sleep when you can, and think things through, deep breaths. Try and work out what the best thing to do in that situation is, and yeah, try and keep calm. You're in charge of the situation, so if you're not calm, nobody else around you is going to be. So yeah, that's up to you to try and manage that.
Stay calm. Yeah. You have to be positive, and don't take anything personally. It's just the job, and you have to do it. Yeah. You have to keep the balance. Yeah. This is it. You have to be balanced. So you're going. Yeah. You keep moving.
Yeah.
Dance it out.
Okay. Love that.
Yeah, straight from Grey's Anatomy, dance it out.
Yes.
Yeah, it's literally on my CV. Dance party is included in the fee. Yeah.
Amazing.
I find it's just like taking a moment, step aside, be a little bit silly, shake it out, because it does get really stressful. It can be, you know, you've got people texting you, calling you, you've got your radio going off, you've got someone in front of you and everyone's trying to talk to you, you have a million of responsibilities and you're the sole person in charge of everything, and it can get really overwhelming from, you know, the events that I've worked. So it's nice to just take a step out and just shimmy.
Constantly reminding yourself and the people around you that we're all very lucky to be here. Things happen, and it's sort of how you react to it and how you deal with the things that do happen.
Yeah.
And you do what you can to prevent it, but some things are unavoidable, and you keep a level head. And also, you're going to have bad days, but ultimately, I think if you treat people well, they tend to treat you well back. So I think there's just a level of respect for everyone that you're working with, and respect for people you're working for.